strong your team is, how bad they are, divisional games are going to be nail biters. So it's tough for me to look at them playing the Cowboys and say, well, they only got, 207 yards passing against the Cowboys defense, because this could be the one game Cowboys defense looks like the best in the NFL because they're playing a divisional opponent. It's tough for me to see the Saints only giving up 200 yards when they're facing guys like Sterling Shepard and Odell Beckham and Victor Cruz and even Shane Vereen. I mean, I don't see it. It's possible. I mean, Odell Beckham only caught 4 catches on 8 targets against a secondary who is as bad as us, in my opinion, maybe worse. But I'm not sure. I think that offensively, our offense can take apart their defense without question. I don't think there's any question there. I think the combination of Mark Ingram running and Mark Ingram receiving, people are still not giving him credit for receiving, but Mark Ingram in the backfield and then the 3 receivers and hopefully Kobe Fleener, the offense should have no problem scoring another 30-burger. It's the defense I'm still so unsure about, because one of the things that Dallas did do successfully, and I'm not sure how many listeners here got to watch that game, they got pressure on Eli Manning. And Eli, the interception Manning, has never liked pressure. Most quarterbacks don't. Drew Brees is one of the few who can get away with being good in pressure, but he has his slip-ups. But Eli, everybody knows Eli for his interceptions, especially in high-pressure situations. The thing is, can the Saints get pressure on Eli Manning? And I'm not sure.
I don't know. And if I did see that the Saints want to come with, Sean Payton did say he would possibly have to send more than just 4 guys because he doesn't think he's going to be able to get pressure with the front 4. I'm hopeful that that's just coach speaking. He's just trying to prop up the Giants if you're looking for exotic blitzes, because I would hate to see what would happen if they send the blitz and it doesn't hit home. Because for as much as Eli is interception prone, and he is, he doesn't really need very much time for Odell and the guys to get open, because now he has, if they can pick the blitz and pick up the blitz, then I can't take our young corners. Like, I can't watch King Crowley on Victor Cruz. I'm sorry. I know that's the win for the Giants.
Yeah.
This is going to be a shootout. It's going to be a high-scoring game. It's going to be much like the game, what came out to be versus Oakland. It's going to be a 37-34 type of game, and it could be even higher. And, basically the team with the ball last should win. And really, you can't put all of the onus on the kicker. I mean, he's a rookie kicker, but the Saints should have walked away with a victory this game. So the team with the ball last should win.
Well, I think just about everybody can say the team with the ball last wins, but I'm pushing for the turnover battle, because it is something that we saw the defense do in preseason. So if we can get Eli Manning, who has, keep this stat in mind, thrown 25 or more interceptions twice in his career. Now, this has been a long career. He's in his, 13th season? But still, that many interceptions, that's Brett Favre level. That's a lot of interceptions. So maybe there's potential there. I mean, now he has always been decently accurate, and he now has 2 receivers who, I mean, I'd have Darrelle Revis and, Chris Jr. out of Denver to put on my secondary to just think that I'm going to shut those 2 guys down. And even then, they're probably still going to make some spectacular plays. But I think the running game is not that strong, so they are a bit one-dimensional right now. I think they're mostly a passing team. I'm not scared of Rashard Jennings or Shane Vereen. So with that in mind, who knows? Maybe they can figure something out. Maybe the guy that, the much maligned Jarris Byrd, who you're having issues with, and I think most of who that nation is, maybe he shows up and he's able to help shut down the deep threat of Cruz and Odell Beckham. And it's one of those things where if we can only force half of their drives to end in 3 and outs or something, Saints have a good chance. Because while we do say the name Odell Beckham Jr. and Victor Cruz, let me say this. Are those 2 really that more talented than the duo of Crabtree and Cooper? Maybe, but I wouldn't say the margin is that wide. And let me add that the Oakland Raiders have a better running game, so they're not one-dimensional. So is it that big of a jump from Oakland to New York in terms of the threat that they have to their secondary? I'm not sure it is.
I totally agree with you. I don't think the margin of the wide receivers that we're seeing is going to be that far off. Odell Beckham and Amari Cooper, I understand Odell is great, but Amari Cooper is no slouch in and of his own right. And, of course, you have the Crabtree and Victor Cruz. I would say Victor Cruz may be the more explosive player out of the two. So, I mean, in actuality, I don't think it's that far off at all. And I do believe the Saints will be able to put up points on the Giants. That I do. I'm not afraid of Rashard Jennings, as you alluded to. He doesn't scare me, and neither does Orleans Darkwa or any of the other guys.
Mm-hmm.
I believe the Saints have a chance. The game scares me a little bit being in New York. However, I don't think the Saints are just going to, they're going to roll over for the Giants. I just believe that when it comes down to it, the Giants will give you an opportunity to make a play against them. They always do. I don't know if the Saints defense, as young as they are, can cash in when the Giants screw it up. If Eli Manning throws a ball that should have been picked off and it's dropped, I won't even use Ken Crowley. I'll use a different player. Let's just say player X. If player X drops that interception, then what's going to happen is that it seems as if for the Saints and their young team, the very next play is usually a touchdown or it's a positive yard gain or a big play downfield. And that's what the Saints defense can't afford to have against New York. It's not the play that you miss. It's the play after the play you miss, and which usually demoralizes you because you're like, wow, I just dropped an interception, and now they just busted a big play against us. For a young defense, that's a bad thing.
Well, let me say this. You're right in what you're saying because, I mean, there's no way I can dispute it. I mean, if we look at just recent Saints history, just the past 2 or 3 years on defense, that's been extremely apparent. But I'm going to say I've seen promise from a lot of guys. Kenny Vaccaro Sunday looked incredible.
Oh, absolutely.
The linebacking core looked very strong. And even though most of that was just 2 linebackers on the field, you had Laurinaitis, who I was very questioned about Laurinaitis coming in because I don't know. I mean, I'm not a fan of old white linebackers. Call me racist. But Craig Robertson also had a very strong game. Linebackers look good. If we can get some pressure, though, and maybe that's bringing in Michael Maltby a little bit to rush or, Stupar or just anybody, Kruger, Eller, Edebali, anybody who can come in and maybe put a little bit of pressure on, I think that can mask some of the problems we're having. Because like I said, Rashard Jennings doesn't scare me. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. He's just not a strong running back. Shane Vereen is not a 20 touches back anymore, if he ever was, so he doesn't scare me. I think we can take it. I really do. The only factor and the X factor definitely is outside, away from the dome, which we've always done worse at. Now, we've come up in big games. I mean, the playoff game in Philly, we came up on a big night and won that on the road. I mean, so it's definitely doable for this team. I think that while it is true that we struggle sometimes in that manner, it's not as bad as it's blown out to be. But this defense, let them gel a little bit more. Let them come together, and maybe they'll come out all right against 2 very scary wide receivers. Because, honestly, it's just 2 very scary wide receivers. There's nothing else on that roster that scares me. Oakland Raiders, Latavius Murray scares me. Derek Carr scares me. Amari Cooper scares me. Crabtree as a number 2 scares me. But over in New York, Eli doesn't scare me. Eli's a good quarterback, but I think Derek Carr is better, and he's in his 3rd year. Rashard Jennings doesn't scare me. Shane Vereen doesn't. Sterling Shepard doesn't. Larry Donald, none of those guys do. So 2 guys to shut down. I think the defense's task is easier this week than last week.
I want to say yes. I really do. I want to say I think they're up to the task. And I do believe that it doesn't get any better for you. It's almost like, guys who are getting ready to take, the ACT or something like that, and you take that pre-test or that practice test before. Sometimes those practice tests are a lot harder than the real deal. And I think for the young cornerbacks and the young secondary that we have, it doesn't get any better than going up against Amari Cooper and oh my God, Michael Crabtree, going up against those guys as a precursor to going up against Victor Cruz and Odell Beckham. So I think if there's anything Ken Crowley can learn, he learned it by going up against two really good guys in Amari Cooper and Crabtree. The problem is sometimes you still need that extra week. Sometimes you still need that extra prep time before you're actually ready for that test. And I don't know yet if Ken Crowley is ready. I believe Devontae Harris will step up. I believe he can. I believe T.J. Williams will step up. I believe he can. I'm a little uncertain about Ken Crowley, not because I don't think he has the ability, but because I think mentally, if he gets beat, what will happen to him?
Well, let me say this. If he doesn't catch his confidence now, I'm worried he won't, because remember, he has to cover Julio Jones in 2 weeks. So if he doesn't catch it now, he might not catch it, and that 2-2 you were hoping for could easily turn into 1-3 or 0-4 because the cornerbacks don't have the confidence that they need to catch. So I just have to rely on the fact that, look, they're going to look on paper like I'm looking on paper, and like, look, these guys aren't as tough as they seem. That offense isn't as scary, and I have to hope that that's the mindset, the paradigm that they take, because if they don't, and they do get low on morale, and the Saints defense has struggled with morale, and if that happens again, I don't see anybody besides Bro shutting down Julio Jones. Anybody. So if they don't catch it now, that whole 2-2 prediction you were really hoping for kind of starts going out the window.
Yeah, and it's going to be a tall task, for the guys when they have to face a monster like Julio Jones, because unlike Odell Beckham and Victor Cruz and even Amari Cooper and Michael Crabtree, Julio Jones would be, if he could stay healthy, would be the perfect blend of what you would want in a receiver. 6'4", 6'5", 220 with blazing speed, and the agility to make all types of different catches. And if Julio Jones can stay healthy, he's the prototype of what you would want in a wide receiver.
Yep.
The problem is twofold. Number one, that if is in all caps. And number two, Matt Ryan is throwing him the ball. And as we've seen from Matt Ryan, he's not the most reliable guy, especially in the red area.
Yeah. Well, we also are talking about a guy from a team and fan base that prides themselves on the nickname Ice. Yeah, that's the name I want for my quarterback, for him to be cold all the time. But Julio Jones, to me, the reason I have him as the best, because he's the Calvin Johnson and the Randy Moss who's willing to do the catches over the middle and the short routes. So to me, he's the complete. Now, in that, he's also gotten injured a lot because of it. And I don't know if he can stay healthy, but unless something drastic happens, and I definitely don't wish injury on any player, he should be healthy week 3. And we're starting to look a little bit ahead, but man, can you imagine having to put Crowley on a Julio Jones, or a P.J. Williams, or a Julio Jones, or a Harris on a Julio Jones? I mean, that thought frightens me a lot. And that same thought frightens me for an Odell Beckham, because Odell Beckham is a very talented player. He's extremely flashy, and he might have more flash in some regards than talent, but that still doesn't take away. I'd put him in top 10 of receivers in the NFL, so he's definitely got a lot behind him. But, man, if they can't build up confidence there, because to me, they got to take confidence. They held Amari Cooper without a touchdown. They didn't really give up that many yards to Amari Cooper. It was a pretty strong performance. Amari Cooper had, 6 catches on 11 targets, yeah. So, sure, they gave up 137 yards, most of that in the second half, but they basically held him to 50% on his catches. For a guy like Amari Cooper, that's a win. So if we can do the same thing to Odell, I give us a bigger chance of winning than I do if we're having to do it, giving up 70%, 80%. And I think you have to build on it. You have to look at it like how we're looking at, because if they don't build their confidence, they're not going to succeed against a Julio Jones and an Atlanta Falcons offense that's better than a New York Giants offense.
I'm fortunate enough now in my current profession to where I get paid weekly. And if I could invest in anything in this world right now, it would be to invest in some type of antacid or some type of stomach nausea medicine, because for the people in New Orleans, I just feel like this week, if there's ever a product you want to invest in, just invest in that right now, because the people in New Orleans are going to need all the Rolaids and Alka-Seltzer and stuff like that. They're going to need all that you can get this weekend, because you just giving me the visual of Ken Crowley matched up against a Julio Jones or Odell Beckham was almost enough to make me instantly nauseous right now, man. I mean, it's kind of crazy that